Hi, so today I'm going to be doing a kind of different video. I'm trying new things, so hey. And it's not going to be, and it's going to have historical facts, but it's not going to be about a specific historical fact or person. I'm kind of going to be basing it on Mary the First, and it's really why she is for me the best out of the Tudors. She's my favorite in a sense. And I'm going to be telling you why. Because doing A level history with the Tudors, and I got asked a couple times who was my favorite one. And I've always, ever since I learned about the Tudors back in year four, so over 9 years ago, um, I've always found her to be extra interesting. And yeah, studying her in more detail led me to like her even more. Okay, so let's start by simplest things. First of all, she was crowned on the 19th of July, 1553. And that's not a huge thing. It's just that when I was researching her for my notes, for my A level notes, I found a website that said it was July 20th, but it's really on July 19th. However, that, if you know me, my birthday has a kind of weird thing, the 19th and 20th of July, so that was kind of cool. But apart from that, the rest of the things I'm going to talk about are actually interesting in general. So let's start by the thing that makes Mary the First the most famous, the burning of the Catholics. Mary the First, she burned around 288, the burning of the Protestants, what I'm saying. She burned around 288 Protestants at the stake. Now, my approach to history is a bit sadistic, and the reason why I like her so much is because, unlike Henry VIII, who was more of a, okay, you don't agree with my religion, you have to take an oath, and if you don't take an oath, you have to die, treason act. But also, I'm going to shape religion according to what I want, not what I believe. Like, he was more of a go with the flow, and the people who don't let me go with the flow can get out of the way. Edward, he was more of Henry the Seventh didn't really get involved in it. Edward the Sixth, he was kind of led on by counselors, although he was heavily Protestant. He wasn't that involved in discussing the church doctrine. And then Elizabeth, she did a bunch of stuff and then let things go. Because she did the whole Elizabeth, the whole thing from 1559 to 1563, the whole religious settlement, but it didn't really change onwards. But the reason I like Mary so much is because she was directly involved in passing all church doctrine, and it was really, really, it was hard, but she reigned she lived for more, but she did reign for 5 years, and she ended all of the Henrician and the Edwardian Reformation, and imposed her own policies, which didn't have that much time to take effect, but some did. And the punishment she imposed was because of her own beliefs, not because it didn't fit what she wanted at that moment. Because the example I put here is Henry VIII. Henry VIII, when he was younger, he was actually a defender of the faith. He was praised by the Pope. But as time went on, he became he turned further away from Catholicism, because he wanted his divorce from Catherine of Aragon, and he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, something that the Catholic Church would not allow because he needed to get an annulment, and that was a problem because he wanted a son, and Catherine of Aragon could not give him one. At least yeah. Anyway, but Mary, she just had a strong dislike towards Protestants, and that's why she killed them. It's because of her own beliefs, and not because, well, she wanted at the time. She always hated the she employed really evil methods, painful ones. He didn't kill as many as her father did, but she still killed a bunch. And I don't know, it's just, it was horrible, but she did it with a purpose. Kind of, you get my idea? Okay, my next point is more economic and social reforms. Although I personally don't know enough to name every single thing she did. She did implement naval reforms, militia reforms, started doing the harvests, and she had a really poor harvest in 1556, but she started implementing laws that would change this. However, the reason why, out of the Tudors, the person that gets the most recognition out of these poor laws, social laws, naval laws, is Elizabeth. However, the laws that made Elizabeth have her golden age were passed during Mary's reign. But because Mary died, she didn't have time to live to see them being implemented, and so her sister took credit for it. But it was actually Mary who imposed those reforms, not Elizabeth. And Elizabeth took all the credit up until 1588, when they were still using the Book of Rates from 1558. So it was kind of out of date. And things started collapsing because the reforms put in place were not fit for the economy at the time. They were fit for that of 30 years earlier. So yeah, that's that. Then the next point, I have to say, this is more of me liking historical drama rather than anything else. It's the whole Spanish marriage. Has nothing to do with the fact that I'm Spanish, believe me. It's just, I find it, my approach to especially medieval history and, well, modern history, this would be, is how it's a huge TV show. And, well, the Tudors was kind of the basis for, well, not Tudors, but like the Wars of the Roses and that kind of area, was the basis for Game of Thrones and other TV shows. So it's not only me who thinks so. And I like the drama, the intrigue. And the Spanish marriage is, for me, one of the most interesting parts of the whole Tudor period, aside from the whole Reformation. And that is because it's a whole drama. Let me just describe it to you in a way that you may think it's a plot from a TV show. We have this woman who, she's kind of old, she's 37 by the time she gets to the throne, and wants kids. Because, yeah, she has her evil sister who wants Protestantism, and she just had to go through hell to take the throne from this usurper who her now dead brother had put in place. And she was also Protestant, but Mary had the support of the people and she managed to get to the throne, but needed to secure an heir. The way to do so was to marry someone Catholic and have a Catholic child. But there would be lots of hatred and possibly rebellions if she did marry a Catholic Englishman. So she had to marry someone from a foreign land. Here comes Prince Philip of Spain, son of Holy Roman Emperor Charles, and also King of Spain. And he's Catholic, he's kind of cute at the time, and, well, they get married. He visits Spain twice in the whole years they were married. A few days before the wedding and the wedding itself, and the wedding itself was chaotic. They didn't speak each other's language, they had to do it in Latin, and there was a lot of miscommunication, and, well, they didn't exactly love each other. Wait, no. She loved him, he didn't love her. And they presumably had relations a bunch of times, but nothing really happened. But Mary was so desperate for a child, she had psychological pregnancies and possibly tumors, which did lead to her death. And Philip just barely came back, and the words he said about her were horrifying. He didn't even come back for the funeral. And then Philip went on to propose marriage to Mary's sister Elizabeth. So that there's that. And it is horrifying, especially if you were married, but as an outsider reading into it, it's a whole TV show. They really should do dating with Tudors. I'd watch it. Then, another thing Mary did, which I love, I think it's extremely petty, but I like that in history. I think it was on the 25th of March, although I may have the date wrong, of 1555. Paul had been having lots of disagreements with the Pope. So the Pope finally said, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to strip Paul of his title as papal legate. And Mary, the day after, named Paul Archbishop of Canterbury. So it's like, oh, you take this guy, you move a title from him, I'm going to give him another title. But she never really disrespected the Pope. Then another thing I also love about Mary is her cooperation with Parliament. Well, Henry VII in Parliament, they met a bunch of times. I think it was in the entire reign 7 times. It was alright. Henry VIII, he met a bunch of times and had a bunch of disagreements. Oh, I forgot to say that in the whole Spanish marriage fiasco thing, there was a rebellion called the Wyatt's Rebellion. Anyway, Henry VIII had disagreements with Parliament. Parliament wasn't that involved, but again, he only reigned for 6 years. But in Mary's reign, there was involvement by Parliament, but it was cooperation. So, for example, Mary wanted Philip to be included in the treason laws, but Parliament said no. So Mary didn't push further because she understood the boundaries she had to respect. Yes, there was the whole issue of royal prerogative, but still. And then Elizabeth, she had her disagreements. She still got what she wanted. And, but I don't know. Under Mary, there was cooperation. And then the last thing I have to say for Mary is not so much of a good point in her resume, but I just think it's kind of cool. I think Mary's the only English monarch to have lost an important territory. And it's Calais. She lost Calais in the whole Habsburg-Valois conflict. So that's that. And also she really gets confused, like people get her confused, Mary Tudor, Mary the First with Mary Queen of Scots. They're cousins, but they don't really have much to do with each other. They didn't interact. The only monarch in the Tudor period which we had something to do with Mary was Elizabeth, Mary Queen of Scots. And yeah, that is it. And I like all of them. I mean, I do find Henry VII could be a bit more interesting because he is interesting. He just could be more. Henry VII had the whole rebellions, the whole Wars of the Roses aftermath, that whole thing. But in terms of the wider perspective, not that important. In terms of like religion and drama and stuff, in my view. Henry VIII, yes, he has a whole Reformation, the wives and stuff. He gets too much hype. Edward, he was just a child, he was really sick, didn't really do much, was under the influence of protectors, blah blah blah. Again, Mary, awesome. And then Elizabeth, she's also really cool. But the reason why she's not at the top of my list, and Mary is because Elizabeth's success kind of stemmed from Mary's policies. If Mary hadn't implemented those policies, Elizabeth wouldn't have been in such a good position and possibly would have lost the Spanish Armada against the Spanish Armada. Which, again, another thing that I find really funny about Mary's reign is that Philip financed the repairs of some of Mary's ships. Some of Mary's, he helped build new ones and repair the ones which were broken. These same ships were the ones that fought the Spanish Armada in 1588. And yes, the ones which were destroyed in 1589, but we don't talk about that. And yeah, that is it. There's more stuff. That's all I can justify. Because then there's a lot of other stuff, but it's not so much based on historical fact. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. So that's the reason why Mary the First, is my favorite out of all of the Tudor monarchs. So yeah, I hope you found it interesting. Hope you liked it, and yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.